This is the TriSwim Coach Podcast, where the most difficult leg of the triathlon becomes your friend, leaving your struggles and your competition behind you. TriSwimCoach.com, helping you to laugh at the water.
Welcome to TriSwim Coach. This is Kevin, and this is episode number 118. And I am really excited to have a special guest on the show today. Her name is Michelle Dinsdale. Rather than give her a long introduction, I'm just going to read a quote of hers that I saw on Facebook. And it says, girl falls in love with tutus and ballet shoes, swaps for running shoes, adds goggles, and a bike. So, Michelle, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be speaking with you.
Yeah, so we'll definitely get into the tutus and ballet shoes. But I wanted to find out your background and where it started and what was it like growing up in South Africa?
Oh, it's so much fun growing up in South Africa. Firstly, we do not have lions and rhino and giraffes walking through the roads, as I know a lot of people here think South Africa does. They're contained in national reserves. In fact, I think California is even wilder than Africa because we have Whiting Wilderness Park just across the road from us, and we have bobcats and mountain lion and rattlesnakes. So I often joke it's a lot wilder in Southern California. It was a lot of fun. I grew up in the 70s and 80s there. It's a very disciplined background. Not so much now, I understand, and I haven't been back for 13 years. But at school, we had a very structured background. The standards were set very high. If you failed two of the languages, which was English and Afrikaans, you had to repeat the year. There was no summer school to, make up recovery credits. If you failed 3 subjects in that year, you failed. So you were taught to work very, very hard from the beginning, and you knew that there was a level you needed to get to. There was a certain standard set. And if you didn't hit those standards, you had to repeat the year. So the teachers taught and the parents parented, and there were no blurred lines. I never remember my parents helping me with homework. I think I was always very driven, as were my friends, to hit those standards. And also we wore school uniforms. Girls were not allowed to wear makeup. We had very strict rules about hair being in place. If your bangs touched the top of your eyebrows, they needed to be clipped back. Boys' haircuts had to be above their shirts. Uniforms were a standard length. And that went all the way through until we were 18 years old. So we were brought up in a pretty sort of strict background, which I think was probably good for me because I learned a lot of discipline, and I think that kind of set me up for life. So I have a lot of happy memories and a very, very active lifestyle in South Africa as well. The weather's beautiful for most of the year. We had winter for 3 months of the year, and it can get pretty cold, but for the most part, it was a very energized childhood.
Yeah. So you were never tempted to rebel against all of that strict structure, huh?
Some people did. My brother would argue that structure never worked for him. But I think, we had a lot of corporal punishment at school as well, which is unheard of now. Wow. But if you didn't hand in homework or you were misbehaving, you were called up to the front, and girls were hit on their hands with rulers, and boys, they got smacked on their behinds. And they kept us in check. I have to say, we joke about it today. A lot of my friends are on Facebook, and we joke about it. And some teachers were a lot more aggressive than others, and I'm not saying that's the way it should be. But for me, that kind of structure worked. I found like I needed that discipline, and that kind of set me up for life. I would argue that it doesn't for everyone, and for some people it probably had the opposite effect. But just looking in at my friends, I think for the most part we've all pretty grown up respecting rules and just trying to challenge the ones that don't make sense. But for the most part, it encouraged a lot of discipline and a lot of hard work.
Yeah. I want to get into that a little bit more because I don't know how much you followed TriSwim Coach, but I'm a big fan of the psychological parts of the sport and what drives people and what keeps people motivated and all that. But I first wanted to ask you about how you got drawn to triathlon.
Well, it's a long story. I was never going to be a triathlete. I used to work as a group training manager in South Africa at Vision Active, and they're a chain of health clubs actually run by Richard Branson. And part of my job was running the timetable. And my encounter with triathletes was not a very happy one. They irritated the life out of me because they would always be the ones demanding 2 extra spin classes on the class schedule. They'd always want one at 5 o'clock in the morning when the gym wasn't even open. They would be complaining about 2 little swim lanes in the swimming pool. We used to have a swim lady who would come in and she'd teach children during the day. And these triathletes would come in during lunchtime wanting to swim. And of course, all the lanes were taken up. So I used to never hear the end of that. And then they would always hog the treadmills. They would always be the ones sort of running over the limit of 20 minutes. They would be the ones on there for, 1 or 2 hours. And then at the end of the day, they weren't even social. They would never meet you for, a juice downstairs. They would sort of train and then go home and go to bed. So I really admired the discipline, but I just found them very hard work. They were, they were annoying. So I was never going to be the triathlete because, well, one thing, I couldn't swim. My husband, on the other hand, when I met him, was a triathlete. And shortly after we got married, we moved to the UK and we stayed there for 3 years. Well, the weather in the UK is cold for a good 11 months of the year. So all we would do was run. He never swam. I kind of took a back seat, and I think he would go for the odd cycle. I didn't even cycle at that time. But running became my go-to sport. It was the one thing I could actually do there. And then we moved to California 3 years later. And Southern California is full of triathletes. I mean, it's just, you're going to see them all over the place. It was one of the things that attracted my husband to the area in the first place when he used to come over for work. So I kind of met up with a few of them, and they're such a nice bunch. Triathletes are so friendly. It's such a great camaraderie and a feel-good feeling around them. They're always so helpful. They carry this energetic vibe with them. Nothing seems to get them down. They're always so bouncy and, excited about life. I kind of got drawn in a little into their circle, and it kind of opened the door. But my true sort of introduction into triathlon was having to learn how to swim, because I was getting so many injuries running the hills in Southern California. And one of my PTs actually suggested that I learn how to swim. And I told him there was no way. There was no way. I was 42 years old. I was a fearful swimmer, an absolute non-swimmer. I had a bit of a traumatic experience as a child, and I'd taken it off my bucket list. It was one of those things I never had to do. I was never going to expose myself to it. And then he told me that there were plenty of other people older than me who had learned how to swim. That kind of planted the seed, and I started wondering, can I do it? Can I do it? So that just opened the whole big door to triathlon.
Yeah. So what was it that got you to open up to swimming and actually start to enjoy it?
So one of my friends in the community had told me about a coach, Al Gasbury, and he had taught to swim in 7 weeks. I was on board. I thought, if I'm going to get into triathlon and actually be able to do this one day, I need to learn how to do this. So I reached out to him, and he very graciously took me on, and it took him 7 months, not 7 weeks, 7 months with me to actually get me from one side of the pool to the other. And I mean, this man would literally just work on getting my head under the water without panicking. That is where we started. It was ridiculous. I felt a lot safer having my feet on the bottom of the pool. So we worked a lot on just trying to float, trying to find body balance. The first time I got across the pool, it probably took me 200 strokes. But by the time I got to the end, I felt like Chrissy Wellington at the end of her, Kona Ironman World Championship win. I just felt like nothing could stop me. I had conquered this, you can't do it, to you can, you're actually doing this. You just got from one side of the pool to the other. And so he worked with me conscientiously from then on through a sprint triathlon, and then we decided to try an Olympic. We went on to half Ironman, and then I hit the big Texas Ironman 2 years ago. So swim is still a big work in progress. I'm learning to fall in love with it more and more as I go along. But Kevin, it's the hardest thing I have ever done. And I mean, I'm a dancer, so dancing is hard. This is 10 times harder. It's probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. And I'm still finding it hard because, for one thing, I never swam as a child. And I know there's a lot that goes into being said about that. And learning, a lot of natural balance in the water when you're a kid. Or trying to learn it as an adult is very, very difficult, especially when you're very set in your motions. You run a specific way, you cycle a specific way. And then when you hit the water and you try and play out those dynamics in the water, they just don't work. Yeah, that's exactly how I got into it. He's been amazing, and we're still working at this point in time just on comfort in the water. He has me jumping in the deep end, and he tells me to get in the water and play like a child, So I try to do those as much as possible around the 5 and 6 year olds that are at the pool at say midday. So it's coming along. It's just been a very, very long process.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I love that idea of playing in the water, because that's what is so important to, even just from day-to-day life, is to have fun and play. It's like part of what we need. And so I think that's great. And then what you were talking about before about starting out and having that, you put your head underwater and there's sort of like a panic feeling. And I've seen that so many times. And I think a lot of people think that they're kind of alone in that feeling, but it's so common. And I had it as a child when I was learning to swim. My first experience was panic, and I came out of the water saying, I just drowned. I didn't know what that word meant, but it's amazing when I hear stories like yours where you just kind of worked through that. You kind of like little by little by little, right? It wasn't just like an overnight thing where you're like, oh, now I'm fine and I don't have any fears. It's like,
no.
Yeah.
No, it's a never-ending thing, and some days you feel more comfortable in the water than most. That's so strange to me as well. Some days I go in and I just feel like a mermaid, and then other days I'm climbing in and feeling like I'm a stone and I'm just sinking to the bottom. So, it's a great process.
Totally. And so you said that you swim like a dancer, and I want to get into that. What does exactly that mean?
Oh my gosh. Well, a dancer always wants to look beautiful aesthetically. I mean, you want to look pretty. You want to, you want your movements to be breathtaking. That's one of the reasons people go to a ballet and they watch you. It's just your lines are awesome. You have this length and, you move, you flow. Well, when you get in the water as a dancer, and I'm not generalizing. I mean, I know there are a lot of dancers out there who can swim. But for me, I think my first thing was I wanted to look graceful. So I tried to translate that to the water. And it just didn't work. There's no pull in a graceful arm. There's no high elbow in a graceful arm. You don't go anywhere with a graceful arm. My toes would be very pointed and my legs would be so straight because I was trying to have this beautiful line in my legs. And it took a long time to learn to just relax and, learn that movement comes from the hips and not from pointing your toes or, keeping your legs in a beautiful 90-degree position. So there was a lot of sort of imprinted work that I needed to undo, and I'm still undoing with that. I had to learn to become a little bit more aggressive with my stroke, which is very, I run, I've been told I have a very cute and dainty run. That is what I've been told about my run. It's very ballet-like. It's very sweet and serene. And I think that was almost translated to my swimming. So it's been quite a work in progress to just undo all of that and to bring a little bit more of you have to be a little bit more aggressive in your stroke in order to pull and catch and pull. So you just, as a dancer, you get in the pool and you want to be beautiful as well. And you can't always in swim. It's about efficiency, not always about the way it looks.
That's true. Very true. And I actually I think I wrote an article about this a while back, but I tried dancing, like formal dancing, a few years ago. And you said that swimming was way harder, 10 times harder, I think, than dancing. I think it's completely opposite. I tried swing dancing and it was unbelievably hard. I tried this beginner basic class and I could not do any of it right.
You're so funny. I feel a lot better now.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah. So, but swimming, the big difference is there, at least dancing is on land. So when we get in the water, humans have a tough time.
Oh my gosh, it is such a different medium, to running and swimming and dancing. Yeah, I'm totally a land person. So much better on land.
Yeah. And so now you're doing some triathlons, like you do a couple, 2, 3 every year, or?
Yeah, depending on the actual season, we tend to do maybe 2 half Ironman, and then the last year has been doing an Ironman each year. This year, I've kind of tapered down a bit. My daughter's going in for some major surgery, so I just decided I needed to be more on board and be around for her recovery. So I'm using this year to really focus on strengthening and really working on swim technique and bike technique and the running skills, just so that I sort of start next year in a better place, psychologically, and also knowing that I've had a really, really good year of just spending more time on the foundational work rather than just getting in and putting in the hours.
Right.
So that's given me a really, really good time to just focus more on swim technique as opposed to just getting in and doing lengths, which has been really, really valuable. I'm really enjoying that.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, what keeps you going with triathlons? You've been doing this for a while. I think you said over 10 years.
But 6 years only. Yeah.
6 years. Okay.
6 years. What keeps me going is the structure. I love that I have a plan to wake up to every morning. It might be a run, a bike. Sometimes it's a run, bike, and a swim. Sometimes it's a swim. It kind of reminds me of dancing because you would have to get into a studio every day and do, certain amount of exercises, typically the same thing. And then you would work on your repertoire. So whatever dance you were going to do, and triathlon is almost the same. You're getting in and you're working on the specifics. You're working on the fitness, the endurance, the skills. And then race day is the pinnacle. It's dance day. It's stage day. It's the reward for all the hard work that you put in. And I really, really have loved that and embraced that just because it gives me such a good outlet for the day. It puts structure into my day, and there's a great goal waiting at the end of it. And I love that my children are looking in and seeing me doing all of this, because I really think it's inspiring them on another level to work at their own dreams. I think it's important for children to see that parents have their own lives, that they work to specific goals as well. I mean, we can teach and tell our children about it, but I honestly think a lot of it is action. And I like that they're looking at me and seeing me doing it fearful anyway, but still overcoming the challenges and doing my best. I think it's just been such a huge lesson for them. So I really enjoy what it does in their lives as well. And then my husband and I train together as well. So it becomes date time. And the fact that we share such a common interest has been very, very positive. And I know that he loves it. I've really embraced the triathlon world, and I'm throwing myself into it like he used to. So it really helps our marriage, and there are just so many positives. You just feel so good. I just feel so good after training, and it kind of sets my whole day up. And the discipline it brings into your life as well. I think that's so important because it translates to everything else you do in life. If you're disciplined in your training, you kind of follow through with things you have to do in the rest of the day, and you have a good mindset.
Yeah. I think you probably find it easier to get like a lot of things done when you're training than versus when you're taking time off, right?
Exactly. You do. Right. And I just seem to procrastinate if I don't have a plan. I've got all this time, and yet my time's wasted doing a lot of different things with very little result at the end.
Yeah, exactly. Now, the reason that I actually wanted to bring you on this podcast was I saw you post something on Facebook about nutrition and how you've changed things up, and you've been doing something a little bit different lately. So I wanted to find out more about that and what's, where you kind of were before and then what you're doing now.
Oh, absolutely. So I used to be the typical endurance athlete, relying on, the sugar and the gels and the hydration. And my first Ironman, I spent so much time on the bike, just stopping, filling my bottles up with more hydration, making sure I had the good ratios, eating, copious amounts of goo, and then feeling awful at the end of the race. It took me 2 days for my digestion just to get back into place. And I had a bit of a scare last year, a pre-cancer scare, and I had to take a step back and look at what I was doing. I'm incredibly healthy. I work out all the time. I was eating pretty well. I thought, I'm keeping my stress low. All the aspects of my life were in order. And so I tried to investigate and see what could possibly be the one thing that was out. So I started doing research as a health coach, and I realized, obviously, we eat so much sugar as athletes. I mean, we do. We're relying on it as our primary fuel, not only during training, but I know I do, and I know a lot of my friends as triathletes rely on sugar, or we eat a little bit more sugar because we train so hard. So having 3 more cookies in a day, isn't going to make a difference. Or if we have a piece of carrot cake, it's not going to make a big difference. And then I realized that sugar is a huge contributor to inflammation in the body. And we're already releasing so many free radicals into our body by training so much. And then having sugar, just, compounding it, I realized wasn't a good thing. So I'd been watching in on this whole fat adaptation with a few athletes in South Africa, because Tim Noakes is from South Africa, and he's jumped on the bandwagon by saying that we should be using fat as primary fuel instead of sugar for the most part. Right. And I was very resistant in the beginning because I haven't known any top age groupers or any professional athletes who were finishing these big races on fat. So I was kind of looking back at it going, it's a scam. But then I started doing a little bit more research, and it kind of just started making sense. So I reached out to a friend who is on Facebook in South Africa. I'd been at school with him, and he was a profound athlete, even as a child. But he's a really top age group in South Africa with cycling in Durban at the moment. And he studied banting with Tim Noakes and runs a fat as fuel group in South Africa. And so I reached out to him because he works with athletes. And he gave me some advice, and then I asked him if he could coach me. I'm big about coaches. I need coaches. Coaches are amazing. They'll keep you accountable. They'll keep you on track. They'll give you all the knowledge you need. So I've been working with him for the past 4 weeks. And what really put me off about fat adapting in the first place was I was watching people having to weigh food and work out the net carbs. And I don't have time for that. My day is too busy to be getting into numbers. And he simplified the whole process so much for me. It made it so much more doable. And I was very wary when I started because I was fat phobic, as we all are. I mean, I think we all are. So I was a little resistant, hoping that I was going to pick up weight. Well, the first week was a no-brainer. It was so easy. He sent me meal plans. He kept me accountable. He was checking in every day. It was basically just everything was eggs and butter and cheese. I mean, everything I had not eaten, I was eating all of a sudden, with a lot of vegetables, a lot of low-starch vegetables. And the first week was good. The second week I hit, and I was warned about this, my performance really decreased. I mean, I just felt like I was hitting the wall every single time I did something. But he was amazing. He told me to back off the training and to keep it aerobic. And he sort of encouraged me through the process. I think at one stage he said, you've got to look at this as a 3-week Ironman. This is hard work. You just have to keep moving forward. And it was towards the end of the second week that I actually started feeling, there's a surge of energy here. This is fantastic. So I'm heading into my 4th week now. And what we're doing at the moment is we're trying to just find the balance of, or the ratio of fats to carbohydrates. Because once you're fat adapted, you do need to reintroduce carbohydrates in a fair amount as an athlete. We do need them. I mean, we're running off both fuel systems. So right now what we're trying to do is tweak it. We're trying to find out where am I so that I can sustain the energy and actually have more and be at an ideal weight, but still fat adapted. And we're getting there. We're very, very close. But I have to say, I've enjoyed the process. I've lost my taste for sugar. I've honestly not yearned for it. I've not craved for it. Before I go and train, I'm using MCT oil, which gives you a lot of energy. So it's been a profound experience. I'm hoping my husband jumps on board in time, but I'm really, really most excited that I'm off sugar and I'm off processed carbs and I'm off the junk, because they would definitely creep into my day. I mean, they could. You're a triathlete. You'll get away with a few things for sure, but in the long term for your health, I don't think it's a good thing.
Yeah, that is awesome. Well, congratulations on making that shift, because it's not that easy, as you said. And there's so many people that try it and then have that, like you said, for you, it was the second week, it was tough. And so many people try it and then they have that feeling. It's sort of like, it's like a coffee addict might get off caffeine and it's like, I just got to have it. And so then they go right back to carbs as their primary fuel.
Yeah. I think it's important that you don't do it during a time where you're in season. Right. If you're training for something, it's not a good time to do it. It's definitely an off-season thing, and you need to expect that your performance will deteriorate. And for some, it's worse than others. For me, it was really bad. I mean, I just remember stopping every few minutes in a run thinking, this, is it worth it? This is ridiculous. Am I ever going to feel human again? Do you get past this? And if it hadn't been for him actually motivating me and actually telling me it was okay, this was all part of the process, I probably would have just given up. But I'm glad I had somebody beside me taking me through the process. Yeah.
Yeah, that's got to be really helpful. And, because this kind of a change is like, it's a major shift in your life. I mean, it seems like it's just food and whatever, but we all have an emotional attachment to food. So if you're making these kind of changes, then it's so easy to fall off. And plus it's changing a little bit, but we're still surrounded by carbs everywhere we go. And so it's like, it's so easy to grab a quick snack, like a quick bagel or something. But then you're back on that roller coaster, right? Where you're just, going from one meal to the next and you're spiking up your blood sugar and you feel okay for a little bit. And then you drop down and you got to have more carbs. And it's just, it's a really tough way to do it when you look at it. So
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and I think Tim Noakes points out, if you listen to one of his lectures, he actually states that as we become older, we all become a little bit more insulin resistant. So even if we're not feeling it in our younger years, as you get older, it's something that is happening if you've been, attached to carbs all your life. So I think, where some people would say it works for some and not for others, I think generally as a way of eating it is healthier. The fact that you're incorporating so many vegetables and good fats into your diet is only a good thing. So it has been a radical shift in my life. And to be honest, when I started, I was still on the fence thinking, I don't even know if this is a good idea. Even the first week into it, I was still on the fence thinking, will I make it, won't I make it? But honestly, in the long term, knowing that I'm not yearning or craving for any of the junk anymore, it's so liberating. It's fantastic.
Yeah, that is awesome. And and I don't know if you agree with this, but for me, I'm the same way. I used to eat a lot of carbs, and then I, started eating more low carb, and then I just sort of shifted into this more fat adapted. And now it's like I never crave sugar, but once in a while I can have a dessert. I like dessert, but I just don't need it every single time, every single dinner or anything like that.
Exactly. Oh, that's fantastic. I'm so glad you're on it too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's one of the things that I'm really passionate about as far as triathletes and, endurance sports in general is that, everybody was so hooked on carbs for so long. And now, I love that we're seeing it. I started talking about this in like 2009 and, most people thought I was crazy, but now it's like it's getting more mainstream. So it's good to see.
I'm sure. I think I would have looked at you back then as well and thought you were a fool. It's, how can you? We need sugar. We need it to survive.
Right.
You start looking at how sugar is actually treated in this country as well. That was a big eye opener for me too. I started realizing not only is it spiking your blood sugar, but it's actually filled with toxins and all this rubbish anyway, which could lead to so many diseases down the line. So I just think in general, you don't have to be a triathlete. I just think as a general normal person, people should be adding more fats and whole foods into their diets.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you mentioned the MCT oil. So you have like a spoonful of that and then go out on a ride?
Yeah. So I actually, and you probably know this, you can't start it too soon and too quickly or have too much too quickly because it can really cause a digestive upset. So I started with a teaspoon once a day, and I think I'm up to 15 moles 3 times a day. So I'll typically have 1 tablespoon before I go work out in the morning, and then I have another tablespoon in the mid-afternoon, and then I'll have another one just before dinner time. And yeah, that's pretty good at just keeping your ketones where they should.
Do you know, now I know I actually haven't tried MCT oil, but I eat a lot of coconut oil. Is that kind of the same thing?
It is kind of the same thing. Apparently, MCT oil bypasses the process pretty quickly, and it will give you a lot more instant energy than coconut oil. That is what I've been led to believe.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's pretty healthy. It will, if you're trying to get into ketosis, it's one of the things that can actually really project you and get you there a lot quicker.
Okay. And you've gotten into ketosis?
I have, and speaking to Nick, who's the actual coach, we're not sort of fanatical about it. Like, he tends to be fat adapted and not in a pure state of ketosis until he's actually racing, and I think that's a healthier way to do it. I don't think being in a state of ketosis day in and day out, year in and year out is such a good thing. I think your liver needs to be challenged with the different systems. So being fat adapted and still being low carb and eating high fat is probably the healthiest. But in order to get into fat adaptation, you need to get into ketosis. You need to actually force your body to start using the ketones for energy. And that can take time. Yeah. I mean, we've seen anywhere between 2 to 3 weeks. And then I think Nick was saying even up to 6 weeks. It can take before your brain starts understanding that is its primary source of fuel. So it's definitely not I'm going to try it for one day and see. You have to really stick it out for a good 2 months, I would say, to see the real benefits that come up in performance in training.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the good thing about it is you can replace the sugars or the higher sugar foods with tasty foods that have a lot of fat in them. That's what makes it a little bit easier.
I know. There's even I don't know if you've tried it, but there's a recipe for a ketogenic pizza, and the base is actually just cauliflower, cheese, and egg. Yeah. And then you bake it and you and it's delicious. I'm just thinking, there's nothing you can't do. There are even desserts you can have. They've just been adapted. So I think a lot of people fear having to give up so much, but this actually opens the door to so much taste and actually feeling so satisfied. You probably find like you could eat and you don't need another meal until a few hours later. And I love that. I'm not constantly thinking about, I'm hungry, what am I going to eat now? Right. And it's a case of I can eat and a few hours later, I get hungry again. And that for me is one of the best things.
Yeah. So now you said that your husband is not quite on board with this. What I'm curious about, what about your kids and how's the cooking going?
So everyone's kind of looking in. My son is pretty much on board. He enjoys the eggs. So I typically do eggs for him and I in the morning. So he's on board. He'll do anything. He'll jump on board. My daughter likes her chocolate. She's definitely there. My husband is a chocolate milk fanatic. I mean, he uses it for recovery. He would drink a gallon of it in a day. He's pretty fat phobic too. But my husband is also the kind of person who will look in. I mean, I did Ironman first. Between the two of us, I was allowed to do the Ironman first. And he looked in, and I knew he knew that if I could do it, he could do it. So he did his the following year. And it's the same with us. He's watching. And I think he's watching my results, and he's looking at, my energy levels. And I know in time, if I start cycling a little bit harder, my running gets better, and I start flying through the water as a swimmer, he'll be on board. It's only a matter of time, but I'm the guinea pig in the family. So yeah, me first, mom first. But in time, I really do. I mean, the cooking, I am incorporating a lot more of the vegetables. I am adding more fat to our meals. And I think it's really important for teenagers, especially. My twins are 18. My son's still going through a fast growing spurt. And I just think it's so effective for them to be eating like this. It'll set them up for life. So yeah, I'm adding where I can, and I'm doing it as subtly as I can, and slowly just cutting out. We never used to keep a lot of junk in the house, but I've definitely gotten rid of a lot of the stuff that I just know is not good for us in the long term.
Like the Fruit Loops.
We never had Fruit Loops. No. Yeah, exactly. I mean, teenagers, I sort of find my son will go out during lunchtime at school and buy the odd Coke, and he knows it's not good for him, but he enjoys it. And I don't want to be that mother who's restricting them so much that, by the time they leave the house, all they want to do is have a junk party because, that's all the mother did. I'm truly a believer in, just like you were saying, you'll have a dessert every now and again. Well, if you want the Coke, have the Coke, but it shouldn't be a part of your mainstay diet. It should be the exception and not the rule. It's nothing you should be having on a day-to-day basis. Yeah. So we try to keep everything in balance.
Yeah, it sounds so healthy to me what you're doing, like with your family and everything, because like you were saying earlier, you're kind of leading by example with the triathlon and the healthy lifestyle. And the same thing with eating. Like a lot of parents will try to force their kids to eat a certain way. And even if that's the greatest way to eat on the planet, it's still, when you're pushing it on somebody, anyone, they might have a tendency to reject that. And then, so you're sort of setting them up for wanting those unhealthy foods.
Exactly. And especially as teenagers, where they're being exposed to friends who are eating such rubbish during lunchtime. I cannot be there policing that. So as much as I can, they hear me talk about health. They've always known us to be a healthy family. I kind of feel like we have a good foundation anyway. And, with this whole high fat, they're watching me as well. They've got big eyes and looking in. So I feel like good things are coming.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it's great. Great story. I really love that. Now, so going back to triathlon, do you have any favorite races or experiences that you can share with in terms of your career as a triathlete?
I think every single race I've done has just been such an exhilarating experience. Texas Ironman, I did that in 2015. That's probably one of my most favorite races, probably because it was my first Ironman. I love the weather. I do really well in heat and humidity. Yeah. That's my kind of weather. And the energy on the course, honestly, the training I loved, but race day was it was a party for me. It was so amazing to be out with 2,000 other playmates on that day, just doing the same thing. The vibe and the energy on the course, until you do an Ironman, you would never get it. It's unbelievable. I think that's what keeps people coming back for more and more, and that in any race, not just an Ironman. There's just such community and love, and it's such exhilaration. There's nothing quite like running through the finishing line of a triathlon and knowing that you've had 3 different disciplines that you've actually just you've conquered. You just feel so badass. It's just fantastic. So Ironman ranked as one of my nicest. We did Vineman last year, and I ended up with 2 punctures on the bike, which cost me an hour 10 just trying to fix them. One of the spokes of my tire or my wheel was pushing through, and it kept puncturing my tube. So I had a horrendous experience there. But they're all good learning, curves. I sort of came out of that race feeling a little defeated, thinking I would have done a lot better. But live and learn. I've got to make sure that my bike's in good gear, and you've got to make sure that your equipment's top notch before the race day. So that's another thing I learned. But I think every single race I've done has just, taught me a lesson. I've just learned so much. I've appreciated people. I just love the community of triathlon in general, and I just feel like it's such a healthy lifestyle. I just love that there's so many people doing it, and there's so many people who never thought they could do it that are doing it. Yep. It's so inspirational. I'm so inspired by people who never did anything, and now they're doing Ironman. Look at that. It's absolutely amazing. What great role models.
Yeah, that's for sure. Awesome. Well, it's been really fun having you on the show and chatting. I really like your story. If someone wanted to get a hold of you, do you have a blog or anything?
I don't, but I'm a health coach. I have a page on Facebook called Michelle Dinsdale Coaching, and I'll be launching a website soon with that, and that will definitely have a blog. So I would love to connect with people there. Yeah, thank you so much, Kevin, for having me on. You're so great, and I love the work you do, and you're an amazing coach. And thanks for everything you're putting out there.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I appreciate the comments, and I'll post the link to your Facebook page for now, and then once you get your site up, we'll just switch it, or we'll just put it in the website as well.
Oh, that is so awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the TriSwim Coach Podcast. If you like this show, consider giving us a 5-star review on iTunes, and we'll read it off on the next show. And to get the latest triathlon swimming tips, tricks, blogs, and podcasts, go to triswimcoach.com. See you next time. Until then, befriend the water.